I saw Cofield's forehead there for a few seconds.
Yeah. Clearly he's out doing something. I think we're live, by the way.
Oh, are we? Great.
Yeah, what's up?
Fantastic.
We'll do it. We're going to do it live, as they say.
Do it live.
That's right. Well, your Avalanche kicked the shit out of the Golden Knights tonight. I saw
As
that
it
much.
should be.
Yeah. That was like definitely this season the worst game I've seen the Golden Knights play. It was it looks like we didn't even belong on the ice.
Well, the Avalanche are clearly headed straight for the Stanley Cup, so it's no shame in losing to the Avalanche.
I think I don't know if they're the favorite, but they're top three. I think Tampa's still there, and I think the East Conference is sort of stacked, so it's hard to compare apples to apples when out west there's only 2.5 good teams.
Well, with hockey, it's all about goaltending when you get to the playoffs anyway. I mean, it's, you get to the playoffs and one team gets a hot goaltender and all the handicapping goes out the window, so yeah. It's, I mean, you have teams that are, yes, good. And they've been good, playing consistently all season long, but like, the Avalanche, have, of course their great core roster with somewhat suspect goaltending. But if Grubauer, for example, gets hot, they could go all the way. But if he doesn't, then that McKinnon and company, that's a waste, so that's kind of the way we feel around here.
Well, Grubauer's been hot for about 30 games, so he's doing pretty good. What's going on, Adam?
Look who it is.
What's up, guys? How you doing? Welcome. Sorry to both you guys and to our folks out there. We're a little bit late, but technical difficulties. It is us three on this Lawn Sporter evening, and you guys are breaking down some hockey, which is good. I will ask Justin, worried about Fleury at all?
I was just texting my buddies. I'm like, well, that's all they need for him to lose the job. There it is. I mean, he's lost the job.
Obviously, tonight they didn't play well in front of him, but he let up a couple that I thought were on him. And I was just I think off the top of my head, 5 out of the last 7, he's given up 3 or more. 4 of those, it was 4 or more. This has happened the last couple of years, right? It's been a really good start, and then kind of the second half fell off. And listen, he's been playing every day. I'm sure he's completely worn out. But this is why you have 2 goaltenders as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still not convinced that 2 goaltenders is – well, I can go either way on it. It was obviously great to have 2 goaltenders this year because we lost Leonard for half the season with a concussion. And frankly, with Fleury's concussion history, it's not a bad idea to have 2 good goaltenders for the regular season. But, if you have to use 2 goaltenders in the playoffs, then you either everything's going really right and it doesn't matter who's back there, or things are going wrong and you're trying to find your groove and switching goaltenders and taking out your starter, which means you've lost a couple games. So I don't know. I think clearly it's the Avalanche and the Golden Knights at the top of the West, and then, a gap, and then the Wild, and then a gap, and then St. Louis and the Kings, I think, are on pretty level footing. And then the bottom 3 just don't even, or bottom 4 don't even matter. They're terrible.
I wasn't going to say anything, but it was asked in the comments, so I guess people do know. Yes, it is Steve Cofield's birthday. I think 62 he is tonight. That's our running bit. He makes me older, so I'll make him older. So yeah, it's his birthday. We did not want him. He's celebrating. He's having a good time. Dan, we were breaking down some hockey, but does Denver have? Is Denver all in on the Avalanche, or is it like a third-class citizen?
Oh, that's a loaded question. We passionately support the Avalanche. It's weird. When the Avalanche came here, they sold out for like 10 years, but they were loaded with superstars. We had, Sakic and Forsberg, and we had Rob Blake. We had Ray Bork for a little while. We had Patrick Waugh. I mean, we had just had this embarrassment of riches, and we had our Pierre Lacroix was a general manager that was just every year willing to pull, a blockbuster trade. This was pre-salary cap, type era, any type of restrictions, and so there was literally no restrictions on what he had, what he could do, and he did it. He pulled the trigger every year, and financially they could do that too because the Pepsi Center sold out all the time, and we were competing for Stanley Cups. We got 2. And we were always competing. One year they traded for, who was it? Paul Correa and another guy. Oh, his name's Teemu Solani, I think. And that didn't even work out, right? But those were just 2 guys they just brought in 2. And so it was just an embarrassment of riches. And we sold out for like 10 straight years. And then we kind of had our down periods and things like that. And then it kind of just fell off. I would say the average hockey, the average sports fan likes the Avalanche. Has the average fan here ever really figured out hockey all that much? No, I would say no, not really. I don't know. Probably similar to what it's like in Vegas. You guys probably won't admit that. You guys, I could tell Justin knows hockey, and Adam, you cover it for the beat, so you know hockey. Now, does the average person out there roaming around the locals casinos over the station casinos or whatever Green Valley Ranch casinos, do they know truly hockey? I doubt it. They're learning probably. It's probably a little bit similar here that you have your very core. It's funny, when Craig Carton was here, he did a show on the Fan. He's like, there's exactly 19,000 hockey fans, and every single one of them goes to the games, and that's it. And that's not accurate, but the hockey fan is very, very passionate, and he's very stuck up and snarky. And then the rest of us are like, hey, we like the Avalanche. Hey, we want them to do well. And when they get to the playoffs, now, unfortunately, here we don't get to watch the Avs or Nuggets on television because they're in this stupid dispute with Comcast. So 60% of the TV households in the Denver metro area simply don't get to watch the Avs or Nuggets. So that blows. So that's not helping anything. That's going on its 3rd season now. So to answer your question, we like the Avalanche. We love the Avalanche. We support the Avalanche. Are we, do most of us know all that much about, hockey? Like, probably not, but we love them. We support them. Denver's a great sports town. We support winners. We support losers up even for a point. We look at the Rockies. We support the heck out of the Rockies. And I said the other night on the show, I was filling in on the Late Show. We are right now for the Rockies. We are in real life. We have done what they were doing as a joke in the movie Major League. Yeah. Like they have literally constructed a team in real life, what they were trying to do in the movie, the original Major League. That's our roster this year. And that's what we're doing. And we're still going to support the team. They're still going to go to the ballpark.
Well, it's a cool stadium and a cool neighborhood. So, why wouldn't you? I think that's a good time. I actually saw somebody.
Why wouldn't you? Why would I support a team that is in no way, shape, or form going to be competitive, that doesn't have major league talent on the roster? Why wouldn't I support it? You're right, Adam. Why wouldn't I support it?
Go to the park, have a couple beers, hang out on Blake Street there with the
Lodo. Well, like I say, you get to pretend you're outside, so you get to pretend you're doing something like productive, like camping or hiking, something healthy and outdoors, even though you're just sucking down beers and nachos, right?
Yes.
Have they adjusted ticket prices to adjust for what the product they're putting on the field?
Yeah, sure they have.
Well, then who cares, right? If I have to pay $5 and I get to sit out in the sunshine and watch a ball game, you know what? I'm in for that.
Totally.
I did that a lot of years with the Padres. I did it for a lot of years.
I call baseball because I cashed out in '94. When baseball gave up on me, I gave up on baseball. Baseball's not even a real sport anymore. I call it sports entertainment. It's like professional wrestling. There's borderline integrity anyway, so I don't even care. So I gave up anyway. But these, one of my co-hosts, they call it they sell sunshine to suckers down there at Coors Field. That's what they do. So fine, that's what they're doing. Let's just be honest about it. You're selling sunshine to suckers. Okay, fine.
I don't have
I love the 27-year grudge. That's a long one.
Yeah. I don't have the ability to call comments, so I'll just have to read some instead of calling them up here. But John Carvelli makes a good point. Dan, camping is not productive either. Let's not fool ourselves.
Well, you go hiking when you're out there, and you're cooking meat over you put hot dogs on a stick. You feel manly or whatever. I don't
Same as nachos and beer. I feel like it's no different.
Somebody says, seriously, Dan? Yes. Oh man, I've got somebody going already.
Well, that is a baseball guy here in town. He is our good friend Jim Gemma, who's not happy with your attacks on baseball. I feel like
it's sports entertainment.
It's true. Let's get into something that's not as entertaining, I guess. Justin, I heard you a little bit with Cofield talking about Deshaun Watson. I think he's going to be a very main focus of this evening. But you, I believe, were kind of breaking down the different complaints that were written up. And I just want you to kind of explain it, because I actually was doing a podcast and I started to try to kind of parrot what you were saying. And I realized like I was just sounding like a jackass who was like basically excusing Deshaun Watson. I was like, no, hold on, not what I'm doing yet. Like, I think we need to hear out everything. But there is some, I think, some issues with maybe some of the complaints as we've seen them.
Yeah, so I'll try not to be super repetitive to what I said, but I'll start here. I see this is really intriguing story that's developing out there, because I can see issues and cause for concern on both sides of the both for the plaintiffs and defendants here. What's troubling to me for Deshaun Watson? There's 16 people who have complaints. And in those 16, there is similar storylines that go along with each. That is contacted through Instagram. I think every single one of them was contacted through Instagram to set up a private massage. So why is that relevant? That's relevant because, number one, most people aren't going to think that 16 people are co-conspirators in this big thing to, lie and defame Deshaun Watson to keep him in Houston, right? Like it stretches the imagination to think you could get 16 people to lie like that and go public in I know they're Jane Doe's, but Deshaun Watson's going to know who they are. They're not anonymous to him. They're anonymous to the public in the filings. So that leads me to believe that there is something that happened. Now, on the other side, I have personally represented dozens of people in sexual assault claims. And I know when I get a sexual assault allegation and I'm meeting with a client, I know number one defense is going to be consent. That whatever happened was consensual. So when I write that complaint, I take that into account and I make sure that I have addressed that issue and put it to bed before there is even an answer. Because typically, if I file a sexual assault action, it's going to be picked up by the media. Most of the time I've done it, it has been. So I want to be clear about that issue and at least address it. I read every one of the 16 complaints, and only one of them directly addressed the issue of consent, to say this touching was not consented to. All of the other ones make implications that maybe it wasn't consensual or maybe it went farther than they wanted, but it doesn't even say that. It does not say Deshaun Watson forced himself on me against my will and against my consent. It does not say that in a single one of the complaints. Even the one that addresses consent says that a touching happened and that was not consented to. If, depending on the circumstances and what objection was made, if any, and let's be clear, for a sexual assault, you do not necessarily have to object depending on the circumstances. I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying that these women are liars. I'm not saying that either. I don't know. The complaints are very vague as to a lot of stuff. So I don't know, but we'll find out more to the story. But if I, in the history of the complaints I've done, I have explained why there was not consent. It was either verbal or physical rejection of the advances, if it's advances, or I've explained why consent wasn't practical because this person had this person restrained physically, had power over them through their position, maybe at work or otherwise. And so the only explanation that has been given that I could try to find in those complaints is they reference that Deshaun Watson is 6'2", 200-something pounds and physically imposing. They do not say there was a restriction on a freedom to leave the massage at any time, to stop the massage at any time, or that they verbally voiced a non-consent or physically indicated that they were not consenting. And so to me, that raised an issue of, I wonder why that wasn't addressed. Additionally, on the complaints, I'll say this. They jump in time chronologically without explanation. I'll give you one example. In one of the complaints, the most serious of the complaints is there's 2 allegations of oral sex. The media has reported that as 2 allegations of forced oral sex. That's not what I read. I'm not saying it's not forced oral sex. I'm saying the complaint is silent as to whether the oral sex was forced, physically forced, or not. In one of those complaints, it starts off with Deshaun Watson was naked when they entered the room, asked him to cover up. He covered up. When he rolled over, the towel came off or fell off. It's not clear. He made contact with her hand with his penis. And then, literally, the next step is, and then there was oral sex. And to me, it seems like that doesn't flow chronologically. And there's a big gap there that is going to need to be addressed at some point. And so I don't know these attorneys. I don't know their reputation. I know nothing about them. They may be 10 times the attorney I am, but I've written these types of complaints, and credibility is the number one issue you need to establish. And I don't think that these complaints establish a lot of credibility in the eyes of the public at the onset. Not that this case will be tried in the public, because it won't. But that's what struck me. That's what jumped out to. Oh, last thing I'll say. The other thing that's working against Deshaun Watson with the 16 complaints is normally in an action, and Dan can speak to this, if there are 16 different allegations that are out there, and let's say we're on case number 1, case number 1 can't say, look at all these other allegations that are out there. There's 15 other complainants out there, and they're alleging this, that he's doing this too. I cannot prove my case through prior bad acts in somebody else's case. However, there is an exception to that rule when I can prove modus operandi, a pattern of practice. And here, I think what the complaints do achieve is a modus operandi. He contacts each one of them through Instagram. It's a direct message to set up a massage that is for relaxation and not sport, specifically for the groin, buttocks, and abdominal area, and then uses the small towel each time that he brings himself, removes it, and makes contact. That is in every one of the stories. And in that case, I think a judge would be really receptive to the idea that that falls within the exception of prior bad acts, and I get to reference all of these other allegations. I get to bring in each of those women into my case to testify what happened to them. Dan I
want to get that or disagree. First, after reading, Justin, real quick, were they actual masseuses, or is he just contacting random people?
Almost. Some of them were not licensed masseuses in trade, but they were I think one of them was they were in the area. One was a physical therapist. Okay. They could do massages. One was a esthetician or something like that.
I just didn't know if he was contacting random thoughts on Instagram and hey, what do you think about a massage here? I think that makes it different, but
No. I think they were all within their purview to give a massage professionally.
So Dan, we had a lot to unpack there from Justin. From your side, what are your thoughts on his case?
Well, the last thing first, in a criminal trial, I don't think the other 15 or whatever it ends up being, I don't think it would come in. I think it will be in a civil trial. I do think it'll be a central issue, and it's hard to predict. In fact, it's impossible to predict what the judge is going to say, but I think it's much more likely that it will come in, because I think there's going to be, I think there's messages, there's records of these communications on Instagram. That's very, very problematic for Deshaun Watson. When this thing all first happened, it was, the first statement from Deshaun Watson, it was, I'm completely innocent. This is ridiculous. And his teammates are coming out. That's not who Deshaun Watson is. And now his own defense attorney, Rusty Hardin, comes out yesterday in a statement saying, we have numerous more massage therapists too, saying that he's like, how many masseuses does this guy have? He's been in Houston for 3 years. What's he got? 100 masseuses? Like, this ain't right. There is something not right here. And I'm not saying he's guilty. I'm not saying he's a predator, but there is something not right here. And not only that, but Mr. Hardin's statement somewhat indicates that there may have been a consensual sexual encounter with this, which is also not good for him. Because that would seem to indicate, yes, he does like to reach out to masseuses, massage therapists on Instagram, and then have consensual sexual encounters with them. That's not good, because what what the Busby can say is that, sometimes, most professional massage therapists don't like that. Now, he might find some that are that like that, but the other ones don't, and that was sexual assault to them, or some sort of malfeasance that he has to pay them money now, or he's going to be get a bad verdict. So that's not good. The sheer enormity of it is not good. So, but here's how I've been looking at it. Even if he's innocent, I've reached out to a couple defense attorneys, one here who seem to think, it's no big deal, he'll pay him off. No big deal. But because when I first saw this, and I saw this crazy stuff, and I think Justin's going to agree with me, this Busby guy, who's the lawyer for the massage therapists, I say that because it's like, do I call him masseuses or massage therapists? Like, I don't know what to do. But he's not doing this the right way, like this through Instagram and all this stuff. My first thought was, what is this, some strip mall attorney just trying to get in the paper, whatever. And then I did a little more research, and I'm like, no, that's not who this guy is. He's actually a much more serious player in the Houston area. So I reached out to my friend Jason Sosa, who's a defense attorney in Houston today, because I think this could be much more damaging to Deshaun Watson if the motivation for this attorney, Busby, is not really, I'm fighting this good fight for my client's best interest and trying to get them justice in the form of settlements or a verdict to make them whole, but it's more for his own ambition, which I personally think that's probably what it is. He's had huge verdicts. It's my understanding he really got on the map. He got a huge verdict against BP. I don't know if it was in the oil spill or whatever. He got a huge verdict. And then he claims, and I don't believe it, he claims he negotiated a $500 million settlement against somebody, which the assumption would be his firm got somewhere in the $150 million range on that. I believe there are verdicts in the range of 150 and another one in 50 million that have been documented. So he has serious money. And that's what my friend, colleague Sosa said today, was he has money. So for him, this may not be about money. This may be about getting a show on Fox News. He ran for mayor of Houston. It got to a runoff. So it got close. So this may be about catapulting him into a race for governor or for Senate. He may want to run for Ted Cruz's Senate seat in a couple of years. This could be about his own ambition. And if that's the case, that's also a big problem for Deshaun Watson, because Rusty Hardin, I don't know if he charges $1,200 an hour and plus, another $1,000 for his associates, but Rusty Hardin's going to put a team of lawyers to work on this. That could be a problem for Deshaun Watson. Just the cost of this defense, if Busby's wanting to drag this out into depositions and litigate this forever just to keep his name, Busby to keep himself in the spotlight forever. And then the NFL says, you know what, this is a mess. And now that what we're seeing is if Busby's leaking discovery all over Instagram, the league might say, you know what, we're putting you on the exempt list until we figure this out. Even if, it turns out in the end that Deshaun Watson didn't do anything all that seriously wrong, this could be very, very bad for Deshaun Watson. He could miss the season. He could be bled dry of, 20 or 30 minutes. I don't know what the cost of this defense could ultimately be. And then he might still end up just settling. I mean, we know proving your innocence, unless he gets vexatious litigation, when he gets all of his money back. I don't know what's in Texas, Justin. Maybe you did the research, because some states they'll hit attorneys. It's what's called frivolous or vexatious litigation. Some states, so if you sue somebody and your suit was so out of bounds, so frivolous, you can get tagged for attorney's fees on the other side. And some states even say the attorneys that brought that suit can pay your attorney's fees. So that if you go all the way through the process and you prevail as a defendant and you get that the judge to say, yes, it was so without merit, we'll give you those fees. But that almost never happens. It's much more likely it's in the 90 percentile this thing would settle. This could be that's what I've been thinking about. Like, even if I don't think he's completely innocent, because at the very least he has this very creepy, weird habit of going out. I mean, dozens and dozens of masseuses, apparently having at least some consensual relations with. So that's not a good look for him. But even if he didn't do anything seriously wrong, it still could be very potentially damaging and costly for him. And he doesn't even have all of his contract money. He signed a gigantic contract, but he doesn't, who's to say how much of that he actually has sitting in the bank to pay Rusty Hardin and his crew for the cost of the defense?
It hasn't kicked in yet, by the way, either. He's still technically on his rookie deals. His contract kicks in next year. So much here. I have some very weird questions, Daniel. Get used to this, of like my complete ignorance and just weirdness and asking things. But while we're on that, I can't remember where I was going to go. There's so many parts of this.
There's a good question on here about I agree with Dan. First off, there's something going on here, and maybe there's something going on both sides that seems a little off to me. And I think most lawyers are like, wait, what? And on both sides. But there's a question on here. Is it fishy that all of the claimants went with the same attorney? To me, not necessarily, because my first indication that when he filed his first lawsuit, it has some limited experience with this. If there are people in an industry who know each other, they may say, hey, I'll come forward if you come forward. Oh, has this happened to you? Have you had contact with Deshaun Watson? Let's go talk to an attorney. And you get a little group together to start. And then after that, my interpretation of what Busby did is he filed the complaint very publicly, maybe for his own personal gain. But at that early stage, what I interpreted it as was a recruiting effort, right? He had enough of a theory there that this was a pervasive activity that Deshaun Watson engaged in, that if he made it public and said, I'm going to go after Deshaun Watson, that his phone would ring. And clearly it did, right? His initial indication was, I filed 3 and I've got 7. And now he's saying he's got 24. So he tripled his numbers by being the public face of the sexual assault allegations against Deshaun Watson. So that was sort of my take on that. But I don't know him. I don't know anything about him. And Dan has done more research in that regard. So if this is a guy who's got the money and now wants the fame, then that might not be a fun battle for Deshaun Watson to have.
Absent the allegation, again, we don't know exactly what the processes were, but absent like the accusation of being forceful, would a defense of Deshaun Watson be? And I'm just thinking, but first of all, he has a long-term relationship. She is apparently not happy by some vague Instagram post that she put up, obviously. But he's like, hey, listen, I'm not going to go out and like meet some girls. I did this one time on Instagram. It worked.
One time?
Like, this is my move now. No, I did it once. It worked. It was successful for me, and that's just my move. And like, I just expected if I invite him over for a massage, like that's what happens, because that's what happened one time when I did it.
Well, no, it's not. And here's just the one little thing. When Justin was talking about the consent issue, I would say that what Busby is probably going to argue is, now I have not read the complaints. I didn't even know they were out there, but from what I have heard is some of the stories are he was doing things before consent could even be, before they could even withdraw consent. Like they're doing their job. It'd be like right now if I just exposed myself to you on this podcast, like
please don't.
You got, yeah, exactly. But you guys wouldn't have any chance to say, hey, don't do that, right? Like there'd be no chance to withdraw consent or give consent or not give consent. Like there was, I think what, their argument was they're sitting there just doing their job professionally. And then he just started maneuvering his organ on them. And then while they're aghast in horror, did what he did. I tend to be a little more modest with my language here, but what he did. Yeah. So I think as they get through the discovery process, they're going to say, yeah, they had no opportunity to give consent. He just in shock and horror, he did his move, assuming it would be okay, and that's not okay, and especially in today's day and age.
So let me take the devil's advocate position on that. If I'm the defense attorney in this situation or in a situation like it, and obviously typically I'm not. Typically I represent the plaintiff, or exclusively now I represent the plaintiff. But I did start my career on the defense side. I would say in this situation, if I were cross-examining or deposing the masseuse, I'd say, okay, this was at your place of business or your building or your house that you picked. You picked the location, right? Yes, you did. Okay. And when you walked into the room, he was not covered. He was naked, right? Yes. And you went forward and told him to put on the towel, and did he? No. And then you decided to continue to move forward with the massage with a naked man who refused to cover himself with a towel? Yes, I did. Why did you do that? The complaint literally says, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Not good enough answer in my mind for a professional masseuse who deals with this I'm sure deals with these kinds of customers on a somewhat regular basis. So people have the wrong ideas about, massage therapists. They go in there, they think that they're going to get some kind of happy ending, and they have to be prepared for that. And so
some of them had towels though.
What? Yeah.
Some of them had towels.
Every one of them, they said, everyone that I read, he brought his own small towel.
Which was weird.
Which is totally weird, which just goes to the MO. Yeah, it's weird. But he either moved it off to the side, said, do I have to wear this? Or I'd rather not wear this. I like to be free. Like those are the comments that are put into the complaint. And so there seems like, and this is why I think the vagueness and the chronology of the complaint was suspicious to me, is it seems like there is no explanation of how we go from point A, where you walk into a room and there's a man who's naked or wants to be naked and is resistant to wearing a towel, to halfway through the massage, he's only asked for groin area, lower abdomen area, and said it's okay if you touch it, and you continue that massage on. I'm not saying that's consent. I'm not saying that that's right, but I mean, I think at the very least, it's a hurdle you have to clear in order to get civil liability. Morality is different than legality, and it's certainly not the way I want people acting around anybody I know or anybody I don't know, for that matter. But I also do think it's telling, and that Busby did this without cooperating with the law enforcement agencies, did not tell him what he was going to do, went and did this, and then apparently lied to the world and said he's cooperating with Houston Police Department, and then had Houston Police Department had to come out and say, we're not cooperating with anybody. We haven't heard anything about this. We haven't been contacted by anybody, and there's no open investigation. So like, there is something weird. I don't know what the hell it is, but there's clearly something weird on Deshaun Watson's side. Like, even if all of these are consensual, the other factor I would say is there is this allegation that's out there on both of their sides that there was NDAs requested and signed or not signed by Son. The timing of when that NDA is requested obviously goes to the consent question, right? If like, hey, at the beginning of massage, listen, I just really want to have sex. I don't really want a massage. I'll still pay you for your massage time, but I'm a famous football player. Are you down to have sex? Okay, cool. I want you to sign this NDA. Like, I'm not saying that's what happened. It probably did not happen that way. But if somebody signed an NDA, why were they signing an NDA, and how could they argue that it's not consensual? That's going to be a hurdle.
Yeah, the NDA thing, odd. I mean, it's very odd for if you're trying to say I'm innocent, I'm a good guy, I'm a good teammate. Your teammates are saying this is just not who Deshaun Watson is. Then why is he running around with NDAs in his pocket for a massage? That's odd.
Talk to Derek Jeter. What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, Derek Jeter had his thing. No, Derek Jeter was above board. Deshaun Watson
had NDAs. No, he had NDAs with all of them.
Yeah,
but he was being honest about what he was doing. He was having your one night. Put your cell phone in the basket. You're having your one night with Derek Jeter, baby.
So is Deshaun Watson. It's your one day.
Maybe he was. So
no, Deshaun was just getting, man, my glutes are tight. Can you help me out? What do you need an NDA for?
I mean, right? It's his thing, though.
No, but my thing is, man, what is this guy doing? There are people you're a starting. You led the league in passing. You're a star in a big market. There are people you can call. There are ways you can take care of this thing, man. What are you doing? You're a creep. I mean, you're going through Instagram for masseuses. Go down to Vegas or something, whatever, man. You guys can, Adam.
Show him around.
You can show him around.
But
do you still have a pager or something? What's going on?
He would probably ask any girl here to sign one too. I mean, I think it's about protecting yourself from your girlfriend more than anything. I think that was what he was going for. I don't know. Well,
what I'm saying is, why would you need an NDA if you were being getting massages? If you were just I just wanted to go. I was reaching out to a professional.
He's clearly
I was reaching out to a professional to get a massage.
Well, I think that's what I think works against the women. If they signed an NDA, like, why would you sign an NDA for a massage? The argument would be everything was consensual. That's why we did this NDA. They knew we were about to have sex. We talked about it. That's why I signed it. That's why I had them sign an NDA, and they agreed. The ones who didn't sign it.
I would push back on that. In the sense that from a power. The leverage, from an experienced power, this a status power of just this low. I don't want to say lowly, but this common massage therapist is like, huh? What are you talking about? Oh, okay. This big star comes to you and says, hey, honey, I just need this just because my manager makes me do it. I have this for everybody. Do you mind just signing this so we can get this done? Oh, sure. Okay. Boom. And then he sexually assaults you. I don't think any jury is going to have a problem with that.
I don't think any side is making the claim that he was just getting massages either. I mean,
he is. What do you mean? Well, no. Hold on.
It's not. No,
that's exactly what they're saying. That's exactly what they're saying.
He's clearly hitting them up. He's clearly hitting them up for sex under the guy.
Well, he might be saying that now,
right? But so that's the difference. That's why I compared to a Jeter of like, hey, this isn't a affair. Jeter didn't have affairs, but because he wasn't married or anything. But Jeter had a girl over, and he didn't want out of the press. So here, sign this. It's our one night. Same with Deshaun Watson. I'm getting with you. Like, this is clearly a sexual encounter. This is not a massage. Like, I think that's kind of ruled out.
Well, he's saying that now. That's not what he was saying originally.
Well, did he ever say anything? He hasn't said anything.
Yeah, no, he didn't. No, when he first came out, everything is false. I never did anything inappropriate ever. I believe they had a text message or an Instagram message of him saying, "Hey, I'm so sorry. If things, something happened that made you uncomfortable, that was never my intention," something like that. So no, I don't think all of these were innocent little him trying to say, "Hey, let's have sex." I think some of it was, the allegation is he's lying on the table and trying to get them to, I don't think that's the allegation at all, is that he just tried to have sex with them. I think it was he gets on the table and he's not man enough to say, "Hey, let's get it on." It's him trying to innocently, "Hey, wink, wink, give me my happy ending." And if they don't take the hint, then it goes bad. I think that's what's happening here.
Yeah,
it's smooth. Win a night with Derek Jeter. It's him not being suave enough, and now this is where he gets.
That is,
and I don't want to say that, like, I don't want to leave the impression that I'm adopting I think that that's what happened. I do not think that that's what happened. I have no fucking idea what happened. Right? Yeah. Like, I'm just throwing out scenarios of, what could cut against the credibility of the alleged victims versus what could cut against the credibility of Deshaun Watson. Clearly, the MO of it all. Like, I just can't get over he brings his own small towel thing. That's just like, that's the weirdest fucking thing.
Yeah, and I agree with Justin. We have no idea what's happened, but as more and more is coming out, I'm just saying it looks weirder and weirder. I already don't Justin and I think are both in agreement. What Busby's doing is weird. It's not in the norm. And again, when I was talking to my buddy today, it's like they all, in his circles down there in Houston, they all agree. A lot of people don't take him seriously. Now he has chops. He's to be taken seriously. It's like the guy that you don't take what he says seriously, but you take him seriously when he files a lawsuit. You take it seriously. But the things he's doing legally is kind of crazy right now. But Deshaun Watson better take him seriously, and Rusty Hardin is taking him seriously. You better bet that. But what he's doing in the media, it's like a lot of, when he goes on, TV shows and stuff like that, just normally it's like, there's Busby again flapping his gums. So you take, everything he's saying kind of right now, I kind of originally just thought he's like, Michael Avenatti, that was, Stormy Daniels' lawyer. Only apparently Busby actually has money and Avenatti, didn't. And that's why he was blackmailing Nike and stealing from clients. I don't think Busby, from what I found, has to do that, because I actually think he has money. That's what's so dangerous for Deshaun Watson. But what I was getting at was Watson is starting to look worse and worse and worse. Now, we got down a little bit of a rabbit hole because, yes, Adam Hill's like, he was just doing this trying to be Derek Jeter. No, I don't know, but it's not looking good.
I would say the book on Deshaun Watson is that he is absolutely a nerd and has zero game, he's like a very weird dude. So when I say, I think it's just his move, I think literally this worked for him one time, and now he's like, this is what I'm going to do from now on. I'm going to just call them over. Hopefully they get the message by me having my weird small towel and nothing else, and that this happens. And I think that's what went on. I did have a question though, legally from this at the beginning when Justin, you were talking about, whether one suit comes into play for the other ones, and if they're separate, could this be? I mean, I have no idea why this is or how it would work out. Could it be like a class action of all of them together against him?
I don't think so, because in order for the class action to be approved, they all have to suffer a similar injury. And because for the vast majority, for 14 out of the 16 lawsuits, the injury is mostly of an emotional or mental state, because there's no physical harm. It was literally like he brushed his penis up against my hand and tried to get me to try to maneuver in a way to get me to fondle him. I don't think that kind of injury, what that did to that woman, is transmittable between the other 14 women. We could say, okay, well, you have all suffered the same injury. So I don't think that would be a class action. And on top of it, unless we found out that this happened to literally hundreds of women, I don't think the numbers are going to be so high that make it impractical for each individual one to bring a lawsuit. So you have to have both of those elements and a third element, the claims all have to be the same. They have that element. The claims will all be the same, sexual assault, but the numbers aren't so high as to make each individual action impractical. And I don't think they have commonality amongst the injuries that were suffered to justify class action.
Then if you could address, if you have anything to say about that, but also the Watson side said, and we don't know that this is true, but they said they have irrefutable evidence that one of the allegations is absolutely false. Like, does that impact other cases? If you're like, hey, we know this one's false, so do we just say, okay, well, that one's false, we throw it out if that was true, or does it impact the rest of them?
Well, the funny thing was also in Harden's statement was he's like, well, we don't know who all these people are. We need to find out who they are, but they're all completely false. Well, how do you know that? Like, how do you know that if you don't even know who they are? Now, what he was saying was, they've been blackmailed by one of them who just wanted, admitted it was consensual. To answer your question, no, because like Justin just said, each one of these right now, they all got to stand on their own merit. Now, if Busby plays his cards right, and they are all, the modus operandi flies, they can all be brought in to testify, in court, and each, all 15 women can come into each of the different lawsuits to show a pattern. Then, one of them gets tossed out. Well, the other 15 plus, which, if 8 more get filed, all those can, be brought against the other. So yeah, if one gets tossed out, that's fine, but the other ones are still going to go forward. That if one turns out to be a blackmailer, by the way, that allegation that happened, well before this Busby guy. That was like some business manager guy. They were trying to extort Watson prior to all this. So that doesn't mean it's not true. The other ones are not true. But it also, again, that tends to prove this pattern of behavior by Watson, which is he contacts masseuses and tries to have sex with them consensually. But that could also show that, it goes to reason that not all massage therapists, professional ones, they don't like that. So he shouldn't be doing that. That's a bad behavior on his part. So again, I don't know why really his defense team would be bringing that to light right now. Yes, I understood that they thought it was a good idea. Like, hey, we can show they were trying to blackmail us. But when you said it was consensual, you're like, oh, really? Deshaun Watson does do that, because the original defense was he's a good guy. He never does anything inappropriate with women. Well, if he's contacting innocent professional massage therapists and propositioning them in their professional environment for sex, that is inappropriate to do towards women. That's not appropriate. And if it was my daughter, who's that's her what she does for a living, I don't want you doing that to my daughter, Deshaun Watson, you pig of a man. That's the way I would feel about it. So I don't think that's a good defense for him. So
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. I think number one, if one is proven to be thrown out, then that just throws out that one. It doesn't mean anything for the other cases. And I agree. Like, here's the thing. He could say, and maybe even be correct and truly believe this, like, hey, I'm a shy dude. I'm unhappy in my relationship. And so I went on Instagram. If I saw a pretty lady who was a massage therapist, I'd set up a massage, and then I would talk to them about it, and we'd either agree or not agree, and we'd have consensual sex. And it was never my intention to ever do anything that was not consensual. Okay, that still doesn't mean he didn't sexually assault somebody, because like Dan says, you've crossed some lines in your propositioning, and depending on the way that you did it, that I didn't get the opportunity to not consent before you assaulted me. And so, I mean, I think that's a really bad message to try to sell to a jury, that yes, I do this, and this is how I meet my hookups, and how I try to keep it away from my partner so she doesn't find out about it. But all of these, they were always intended on being consensual. It's like, well, buddy, like that's you're duping a woman into a massage room under false pretenses and then propositioning her, not really the best situation for true consent, right? And you're doing it starting off with like being naked when you're not supposed to be naked. and you know, I just think, yeah, I agree with Dan that I don't know how you could sell this in a way where you maintain any level of morality that you had before, even if ultimately at the end of the day, legally, you're able to sidestep this. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to do that without settling. But if they are, I don't know that's I don't know if that's the look you want.
I don't know. John's thrown me off the jury already. Come on, John. What the hell's wrong with you?
Well, I didn't want to laugh there because I actually wanted to talk about something not that wasn't serious, but very serious. And I know, Dan, your neck of the woods has gone through this before with, terrible, awful mass shootings. Actually, everybody. We have two here in Vegas, and almost everyone in the country has. First, I just want to get
we're fifth highest. We rank fifth.
Congrats.
In the country. Yeah.
I just want to get, the mood, the feeling around that. I mean, it's awful. It's tragic for the whole country, but for you guys in particular going through this again.
Well, I mean, we're just stunned. I mean, it's just, it's hard for us to understand, like, particularly like in Boulder, I used to do it's hard to explain Boulder to people. I don't know if you guys have any experience with it, but Boulder is a weird town. I don't even like going to Boulder because they're so, well, one, the roads were so small. Like it's a nightmare to drive there because it wasn't meant to be a big town. But it's so hippie and like peace. Like you go and there's people playing guitars on their roofs. Not to make light of the situation, but I was sitting in traffic one day and there's a sign for breast milk facials, like it's crazy. So you don't.
How much was it?
I got the buy one, get one special. So I even know. Yeah, no. But no, seriously, like, it's the last place in the world you would think of a gun violence massacre. And Colorado in general, like where Columbine was. Like Columbine, and of course that, had to do with bullying. So, I guess maybe you can understand Columbine because those were kids getting bullying and, well, that, maybe that was the type of school where, things kind of like that might happen. But, but the Aurora, it's just weird that it happens here because this isn't, a state that's, we have some hunting and stuff, but it's not, the type of, it's just weird. We're not like a NRA red state, that type thing. Not to make this into politics, but so it's just weird that we have it happen so much. I was doing the show the other night when it happened. I was on later that night and I was trying to remember all of these things because I was reading the Denver Post article that said, yes, we are number 5 in the nation per capita when it comes to these things. And it was hard to even think about them all. We had just a few years ago, a shooting at a STEM school in Highlands Ranch. There's in Colorado Springs, we had one at a church. It's getting to the point we can't even keep track of them all off the top of your head, and it's just, but it's very difficult to think about, and so we're still in shock and we're reeling. It's just sad to think about. It's sad to think about the police officer with his 7 children, Eric Talley, that passed away and being the first on the scene. Died, obviously heroically, and just people just going to the grocery store for no reason. And this coward of a man, obviously they're saying he has some sort of mental illness. We don't know what his motivations were yet. I was reading, the articles that you guys sent out. That was some sort of paranoia. People stayed away from this guy. And I believe this guy passed a background check. So we're saying, well, what about background checks? This guy passed. So if you don't have a diagnosis, obviously people in this guy's life knew there was something wrong with him because they're like, stay away from this guy. He's a nut job. He's paranoid and he could snap at any moment, but he passed the background check. and was able to go out and get this this type of rifle. I guess we're, fortunate that with that type of weaponry that he didn't take out more people. I don't have the answer on. I've long since given up. I don't get in the debates. One, I can't, with the judge thing. I don't get. But even that, I don't. Even before that, I don't even bother with. We don't. Even if I had the answer, I wouldn't get into it with the gun things, because we're not in a place as a country where we're ever going to have any consensus anyway. We could talk about it from a legal perspective, like how far we're allowed to go, not allowed to go, and Justin can get into that as well. But I don't know that we're going to solve it from there, other than I think background checks need to go further because the background checks failed here.
Yeah, can we do background checks where we interview kids in high school, because it clearly seemed like everyone around him knew that there was an issue, right, even if it wasn't showing up on anything. Justin, if you want to address any of that, go ahead. But I was also going to ask, this trial is going to be. I hear we're investigation and potential trial. Like, I assume it's going to be a plea at some point. But like, are we really have to go through a prosecution? Like, it seems pretty obvious what happened, right?
Unless there's a mission, right?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. Well, I don't think it'll happen there, but I'll tell you what happened. If you want to get me fired up, what happened with the Aurora Theater shooting?
Yeah,
we had a DA that wanted to run for governor named George Brockler, who there were basically 7 outcomes in that case possible. 6 of which would have led to James Holmes, who was a suspect in that case, not getting the death penalty, not ever being executed. And one of which would have been him being executed by the state of Colorado. Early on in those proceedings, he offered to plead guilty to life without parole. And the DA in that case, wanting to further his political ambitions, not caring about his responsibility to be a good steward of the resources of the state of Colorado, caring more about his chances of mounting a bid for the governorship, said, "I'm gonna take this all the way. I'm gonna take this to trial and put this guy on trial and try and get the death penalty." I don't know if it was 25 million, because they've never been transparent with how much that cost the state of Colorado. I suspect 25 to 50 million dollars of our state funds, and he did not get the death penalty. And they got the same result, which he offered almost from day one, which was life without the possibility of parole. He offered to plead to that, and that's what we got. And he didn't get. By the way, George Brockler is now out of office. He did not get governor, and he also ran for attorney general, and he did not get elected attorney general. So the DA in that neck of the woods, I would assume would this, if his defense counsel, if his public defender, they are going to do a competency evaluation. They were talking about that today. They said, we don't even know what his mental health status is. Before we do anything, we need to evaluate that. So they're going to do that first. So it's a little early to say there's going to be a plea. I think that's probably most likely, because there's a possibility that, this guy could go to, get the death penalty. Is not likely, with a Democrat governor who's not likely to, execute people, but because Colorado's moving away from, that, as many states are. So I would say it's likely, but it's very early to say yes with any certainty. Yes, there's going to be a plea, but it's likely.
Joseph,
I mean, I'll talk about like from the political side of things. I'll tell you, I should say policy making side. I don't want to get into politics of it either. It doesn't go anywhere. I'm not going to convince anybody that one way is right or wrong. I'm going to talk about what some efforts I've seen made when I was in the legislature and in subsequent legislature that I've followed, including in Nevada this year. So first off, there was a movement to increase background checks in many states. The voters of the state of Nevada approved it. Our prior attorney general said he couldn't enforce it because he believed it conflicted with federal law. When he was voted out, the new attorney general did enforce it, and so those are in effect. But let's be clear about like what's in a background check. Not a lot, right? A background check is going to show any sort of criminal history or any charges. That's about it. Some of the efforts that are being made on the local level, including the state of Nevada right now, are to create a scenario in which there can be a hearing within a very quick amount of time, 48 to 72 hours, and the restriction of use of a firearm of a person that people report as a danger to themselves or others, which I think is an incredibly difficult constitutional question to maneuver. I don't know how you could take away it's going to be very difficult to survive constitutional scrutiny to take away somebody's constitutional rights to have a firearm before there has been any hearing based on allegations of somebody else with nothing else. It's simply just affidavits and somebody saying, I think this person's unhinged. And what does that mean? How do you define what's unhinged, and how do you define, where do you draw the lines of how somebody is a threat to themselves or others? Is it verbal threats? Is it some physical manifestation of that? Is it buying multiple weapons in a short period of time? I don't know. I really don't know what the answer to that question is. I
thought you said they have a hearing. Like here, the cops can come get, they file an extreme risk protection order, but they get a hearing real quick, and then based on that, they have it can go up to a year after that.
If at the hearing they determine that they are extreme risk, right? Yeah. So the bill that's in Nevada right now, it hasn't had a hearing yet on the bill itself, but I've seen the language. It basically says a hearing must occur, I believe, within 72 hours of the taking of the firearms. They tried to get that bill through when I was up in the legislature 4 years ago. They tried to get it up there 2 years ago, and I don't believe that bill has ever had a hearing in a committee because politically, it's in this state, possession of firearms is fairly popular. Although I will also say reasonable restrictions are fairly popular. We passed the expanded background checks in 2017. So it was very close, 51-49, very close. So I think politically people are hesitant to show support for that move if they don't think ultimately it's going to pass and that it could mean an end to their political career and they'll get voted out. So it's I don't know. You guys have these red flag laws in Colorado, Dan. Have they been tested with the Supreme Court on constitutional muster and passed, or have they not yet been tested?
I don't know on that. I haven't gotten knee deep into that. I've been to as far as the extreme risk protection order. I was just at a hearing, I don't know, like 3 weeks ago, because they've asked me to, be court appointed counsel for some of those. And so I've read, because that's new. That's fairly new. I think within the last couple of years, and so far it's holding up. And it's, you like I said, you get somebody has to raise it. It's very, very technical. If they screw it up, any of the procedure whatsoever, it gets tossed out. But you get a hearing and there's a burden of proof. And if that isn't met, then you get to keep your guns. If not, it's for a year. And I believe you can, if I remember correctly, you can petition the court. So if you resolve the issue or whatever, if you believe you can prove you resolved the issue that made you an extreme risk or a danger, then you can petition and say, hey, I want my guns back, so to speak. So you have, some more due process built in there. Or conversely, the people that petition for it, which I think most, I think here it's mainly for law enforcement to, make the petition, but they can, petition to extend it as well. But I think so far, it's holding up.
Yeah, there's so many layers of this that I think it gets frustrating and it's annoying for people because I think everybody wants to be better, but nobody agrees how to. And there's really no, even with this of like, if somebody knows like this kid went and bought a gun and then he was done a couple days later. Yeah, there's people that knew him that knew he was a danger, but nobody necessarily knew that he went and bought a gun. So there's nobody that can step in and, say, hey, he shouldn't have one. Like, I don't know. I don't know how to fix it. I just, it's one of those things like you wish, you hope, but like nobody has a solution. I haven't heard a one that was like, yeah, this will work, but you just want to do something. And I get that aspect of it, but it's tough, man.
For me, I'm a gun owner. I'm a hunter. I'm not the guy who buys the AR-15s. I'm not the guy who buys a bunch of handguns. The guns I own are for the purpose of hunting. I wouldn't care how many hurdles were put in front of me to buy that gun. Like, the wait periods, the background checks, I wouldn't even mind if there was a limit on the number of guns I could own, or the type of gun that I could own that was restricted to say hunting or, personal self-defense in the home, like say a pistol or something. Then I got no problem with any of that. Like I'm never in a hurry to buy a gun that I need tomorrow. Never. It's never happened.
If you were, that would be a problem. I mean, that's right. That's like.
So I think there are some common sense things we can put in. The hard part is that it's very difficult to prove that they've worked, right? Because all they do is point to the next mass shooting and say, well, Vegas had a mass shooting, so your background checks didn't work. Well, maybe they did. Maybe they stopped 2 or 3 or 4 or 500 people from buying guns who shouldn't have guns. But that data is very hard to collect because we don't know what people would have done with them. We don't know if that ever stopped any sort of massacre. So from my perspective, I'd say like hurdles, I don't mind as a lawful gun owner, and some, what I would consider reasonable restrictions. I think a lot of people are in that sort of camp, but they're not the most vocal in this debate because they're gun owners and, they're kind of caught in the middle.
What was the deal with that guy, by the way? Did they ever figure out what the deal with the Vegas guy was?
No.
And people use that to fuel conspiracy theories, Dan. Like, oh, we never knew, so I guess, it was not real, like the nonsense. Like if somebody doesn't leave a note or tell somebody what they're going to do or leave behind a social media presence, we wouldn't know anybody's motivation. Like that's the only way we ever find out what somebody's motivation is if they leave clues. If you don't leave any clues, you can't just guess what their motivation. I mean, you that's all you can do is guess, but you can't just come up with something out of thin air. Like it's on somebody to leave evidence of what their motive was if we're ever going to find out what it is. Like it shouldn't fuel conspiracy theories that we don't know what his motive was.
Yeah. I'd never heard. Because that was just so. God, why would you do that if you didn't have some sort of manifesto or axe to grind? Yeah. I'd never heard. What the heck happened out of there? So
it's one of the most it's one of the most unconscionable things that's ever obviously in this community that we've ever experienced. Is the most unconscionable thing, but at the same time, like everybody's still looking for answers, and it sucks. But like, what does it matter? Like, what matters is that all those people died, and we have to grieve as a community, which is terrible. A couple of things real quick before we get out of here. I am obsessed with Cinnamon Toast Crunch shrimp. I'm sure many people are out there. Dan, do you not know this?
No, I saw the you guys were talking about the Oreos that looked like they had shrimp.
Yeah, that was fake. Somebody came up with that to make fun of how many Oreos there are. But yeah, somebody found what they believe is shrimp, like shrimp carcass in their cinnamon
tails. The shrimp tails.
The shrimp tail carcass, whatever that is.
Carcass.
Where? Yes, Topanga was involved. Topanga from Boy Meets World. Her husband is the one that found the shrimp in her Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Justin, where are we go? Like, what can come out of this? Anything legal? Can you go after the manufacturer of cinnamon? I think it's Kellogg's or General Mills, whatever they are.
What are your damages?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So we talked about this. Cofield was saying, like, hey, so what's the damages? Like, well, now I'm I love Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal. This, shocked me and it scared me, and I don't want to eat Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal anymore. And it was my favorite. That's my damages. And basically what I told him is, if your only claim is emotional distress, there has to be a physical manifestation to prove it. Like heart attack, high blood pressure, something physical has to be connected to it. If you don't have any actual damages, if you didn't go, if you don't have any bruising, burns, or cuts, or physical ailments, you didn't go to the doctor, you've got nothing, you're just like, you know what? I used to love this cereal and now I don't. That's not good enough. It's not going to support a claim for emotional distress damages. You need something physical there.
Real quick, while we are talking about food, it's a shame. It's a shame Cofield's not on the thing, because I know you guys talk. He has the meat slicer.
Oh yeah.
And so I do this thing. We cook at the church every other week. We have this gigantic meat slicer. I avoid that damn thing like the plague. I don't want anything to do with the dang thing.
Cut your finger off.
I just got the stitches out today.
Oh no.
Oh! I'm on that thing I got 3 stitches last week. I'm on that thing for less than 5 minutes. Zing! Like, I'm like, ah! So, and then the guy that had just left that I had relieved because I needed him to go do the grill. He works at the church. He's like a big, pastor guy, full-time guy. He comes back in and I'm like, oh man, I effed up. Oh, I didn't say effed. And he goes, oh no. And then he leaves. And so I was sitting there bleeding all over the kitchen. And I thought he was going to get like first aid or whatever. And then he comes back and I'm like, hey man, can I get like a bandage or something? And he goes, oh yeah. And he comes back and he kind of like helps wrap it up a little bit. And then he takes off again. And I'm like, I guess I'll go back to slicing the meat slicer. There's blood all over. Like so I was wearing the gloves, they have the Kevlar gloves, but I only had one on. And I'm like, there's blood all over those. I'm like, I guess. Zing, zing.
What meat were you slicing?
It was potatoes, actually. And because we were cutting like 50 pounds of potatoes for St. Patrick's Day, because we did, oh man, this corned beef was phenomenal. Like, I don't know if you know, Adam, but I have this brand new, the Darth Vader smoker. Did 90 pounds of corned beef, the best corned beef ever. And, but we had potatoes and cabbage to go with it. But we need to get those potatoes cooked up. And I was like, hey, we'll throw it on the meat slicer. Cofield loves it. And it just went terribly wrong. Like I said, I wasn't even on the damn thing for 5 minutes. Like, oh man, I got the stitches out today.
I would never go near that. It's insanity.
I didn't want to. I had avoided that thing for like, I don't know, 6 months. We almost never use it either, but it was bad.
Man, I'm just, I can't even, I'd be so terrified. I wouldn't even go in the same room. I've been to Cofield's house. I've seen it. I'm like, I'm not going near that counter. Not only not using it. I'm
just wondering what the guy at the church has seen before.
Yeah,
for him to be so nonchalant about what happened to you. He's like, oh, buddy, if you'd seen what I'd seen, you would just wrap that thing up and get back to work.
Yeah. Well, no, he was like, oh, that's bad. Because, I'm squeamish, man. Like I couldn't go like hunting with Dustin while he's eating the heart out of the beating, still beating the heart out of the deer or anything. I couldn't do that. But, it was bad, but he just like, okay, well, I gotta go. I'm like, all right, man.
I think Justin, you're right that clearly he's seen some things.
But and then my wife, by the way, I'm like, hey, I need you to look at this, see if I need stitches, and she goes, okay, well, because I still, I'm a tough guy. I'm a gamer. Let's, give credit where credit's due. I finished the shift. She goes, okay, well, I'm here. I'm home 9 minutes later. Gone. And so I pull the thing off and it starts bleeding all over the place again. And she's like, well, can't you just drive yourself to the urgent care? And I'm like, well, I can, but there's blood everywhere. I guess I'll just wrap it in a paper towel. And so I drove myself to the urgent care. Good job out of me. Good job.
Great. Yeah. I would have been down for like a week. Nobody would have seen me. I would have been crying.
I know pro martini maker's like 3 stitches.
Yeah, that's nothing. Get out of here.
It's a fresh win.
We will get out of here shortly, but I had a lot of people ask me this outside of outside of the podcast or outside of radio. So I want to run this by you in terms of can businesses make rules about like allowing people in or allowing people special privileges that are vaccinated? That has been a really big question that I've received, where like, essentially you're discriminating, I guess, against people that aren't vaccinated, but can you be like, hey, listen, everybody can come in that's vaccinated, but if you're not, you get out of here. Like, is that a legal thing you could do? And is there going to be different business airplanes? I'm sure are going to be doing it at some point of saying vaccinated people can fly and non-vaccinated people can't. Is that things that you could do?
I think that it is. Yeah. I mean, private enterprise gets to make rules that are discriminatory. You can discriminate. You just can't discriminate based on protected classes. So, we talk about this all the time: race, ethnicity, sexual origin, sexual orientation, national origin, and religion. Now, where you could get yourself in some hot water is some religions don't believe in vaccinations, and they could say you are discriminating against my religion by excluding people from being vaccinated. But I believe that there is sufficient precedent there to say that the courts would not prevent you from doing that. And the real basis I'm using is, public schools have vaccination requirements, and that's a government entity acting. They have constitutional restrictions there that the private business does not. So I think by and large they're going to let you do it. And because your basis is not based on religion, it is based on safety. And the fact that some religions choose not to engage in that is not going to prevent you from doing it. Obviously, if the government steps in and starts making those actions, it gets a little bit trickier. But again, vaccinations aren't new, and government restrictions based on people being vaccinated is not new. So I think we have a pretty good idea that the courts would allow those restrictions.
Any thought? Because I do have a follow-up on that.
Yeah. My only thought would be based on, if there was a mask mandate, some sort of local or government restriction, are they calling their shots on how they're dealing with that based on vaccinations? That might be a little bit tricky, but outside of that, I would agree with Justin.
Could I follow this up and say, what if we amended it, or what if I fought that and said, hey, listen, you're allowing special privileges to people that are vaccinated. There's clear evidence that protected classes, i.e., different races, are vaccinated at a lower rate and don't have the same access to vaccinations. So are you discriminating in that regard?
They have no. That's not true. They have the same access. They just may not choose to be vaccinated.
Well, access is the wrong word, but there's definitely hindrances in terms of like transportation, how many sites there are to get it done, transportation to them that are limited oftentimes.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's a stretch.
I think that, and this is one of the things I've disagreed with on the commentary that's been made here in Nevada about like, oh, I'm very, there's some elected officials that say I'm very concerned about this was a little bit early on. This is like 2 months ago before they've really opened it up the way they've opened it up, when it was just healthcare workers, first responders, and, and frontline. They were saying, I'm very concerned about the disparity in the vaccination for different races, and what they did is they literally cited, 27% of the population is Latinx, and only 8% of the people who are vaccinated are Latinx. 11% of the population is African American, but only 6% of the vaccinated population. But to me, they are not comparing apples to apples, because what the real metric was, what is the population of doctors and frontline workers and first responders in each of those categories, what percentage declined it and what percentage said yes to it. And that's going to tell you what your problem is, or if it may not be an access problem. And I don't think it is. I think there are communities that are distrustful of the government and vaccination based on a long history of how the government has treated them in regards to healthcare, and they're not going to get it. And
so right now, our station is running. So we have, I don't know if you guys remember Charles Johnson. He came in the Orange Bowl back in the day when CU won the national championship. He cut a spot saying, I understand why you as African American and minorities may not want to get the vaccine, but I've done it. And I did it not just for myself, but I did it for my community and for my kids. You should do it too, because I know why there's distrust, but do it. And we're running that, I think, every break, kind of as a public service announcement to try and get outreach and try and get, out there. And I can tell you that one of my business partners, he's older, but he was able to get his vaccine because somebody called and said, hey, these vaccines that were meant for Hispanics are going to go bad because we can't get them to come in and get the vaccine. So come on in and get your vaccine. And that's not to say that's their fault or whatever, but that's just the reality that there's struggles with getting certain populations, minority populations, to come in and get their vaccines. But to say what you're saying is that they can't get vaccinated and therefore it's discrimination against them, legally, I would say that's a stretch. That's a hard argument to make.
Well, not that they can't. I think if the numbers are lower, like there's got to be reasons. You guys explain why the numbers are lower and why the theory would be that the percentages are there. I think there also is there. Like one thing is, like for me, when I was eligible, I sat on the internet and refreshed like 1,000 straight times. Like that's how I got an appointment when it finally opened and I was able to get it.
Why didn't you just call Dana White? You guys are buds.
Yeah, that would be unethical as a journalist. He did. I'm working on a story right now, but sneak peek to those. Like he did get it for all of his employees, and they did that the other day. So that's out there. But that wouldn't be ethical to go through somebody who I have to cover.
Oh, well, I thought to cover the events you would have had to have had it, so they would have made it available for you guys.
No, I am vaccinated now. I'm not. I guess I'm not fully because I just got the second shot yesterday, so it takes technically a week to 2 weeks to be fully vaccinated, theoretically. But they did change the protocol. So basically, Dan, you'd have to cover an event, you'd have to show up at 6 a.m., take a test, and then stay in a hotel room until your test is clear, and then go to the event that night. I no longer have to do that now that I'm vaccinated. That's nice. Now I can just get tested and then go when the fight starts. Justin,
so I just want to I know you were just giving a theory as to why businesses couldn't do this, and we started talking about vaccines. But I just want to jump down that rabbit hole for a second. I know the plural of anecdotal experience is not evidence, but I'll say at my office, we are a very diverse office. We got 21 people there. I think I'm going to give you rough numbers, but we basically have 6 white people, about 8 Hispanic people, like 6 Hawaiian people. That's about our mix. We have a lot of 5 Hawaiian people, something like that. And we all had the opportunity. I offered to book the appointment for everybody, and we all had the opportunity to go. And all but one of the white people said yes. Half of the Hispanics said yes, and only one of the Hawaiians said yes. And it was like super cultural. I mean, they had the only reason the one Hawaiian sort of broke with ranks is because she has a daughter, she has childcare issues, and she just can't, it was more important to her to get vaccinated. So that's been my experience of it. And I'll just tell you right now, if there's anybody out there in Las Vegas right now who wants to get vaccinated and is waiting for their turn, you can get vaccinated tomorrow. You literally go down to Cashman or the convention center, They are not filling appointments. And at the end of the day, they are doing first come, first serve. Doesn't matter if you're eligible or not, because they're going to waste away. And we have, over 200,000 people who are currently eligible right now who aren't making those appointments. So,
well, and listen, there's a lot there, but like, I would say, what if you don't, and you just said, hey, you don't need to make an appointment, you just go. But not everybody hears that message. Not everybody knows that. And not everybody has the internet, by the way. Like that was kind of my point from the beginning of this, was like when I said, yeah, I sat in front of my computer while I'm working and refreshed 1,000 times until I got the appointment. I got the appointment, I went. But like, I'm savvy in that regard, and I have internet that's fast and useful, and I have time to do that because my job allows me to do that. Not everybody has that same access.
There in Las Vegas, there has been outreach by community organizers to go literally door to door to talk to people in some of the more underprivileged areas, to get them to sign up, to make appointments for them, to get them to the vaccine site. So like, I think the effort has been made here, but I do think that there is, and the opportunity is there pretty much for everybody now, that who wants it, and at this point, it's got to be a PR campaign like Dan's talking about. You got to have people that those communities respect making a plea for why to do it. I don't know how else to. I don't know how else to accomplish it. But at some point, it's going to be like, well, everybody who wanted to get vaccinated got vaccinated, and everybody who didn't is rolling the dice. And if this next wave comes, I hope we're not shutting everything down to protect the people who chose not to be vaccinated. That's where I'm at. Like, you've agreed to, take your risks. So let's go.
And I'm not a sentimental person, as we've learned on the show.
Really?
I did have a
Cofield
moment. Yeah, I did have a weird moment getting the shot yesterday, though, of like this year. And I did it, I have antibodies, and because I had it and I was sick, and I don't think I could have got it again, but I don't know. And I was willing to get the vaccine mostly for people around me and for the community to be like, hey, listen, I'm doing my part for society. But I did have that moment of like, damn, like this year has sucked. And like, we came together as a society and got to this point where we're like, we can get these shots and like get back to somewhat normalcy, which was cool. I kind of felt
that. Man. I definitely had that too. Like I'm fully vaccinated now. I had my second shot. Oh gosh, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, something like that. And, 2 weeks into the pandemic, my wife got diagnosed with breast cancer. She battled breast cancer throughout the whole pandemic. We had chemo, and I couldn't go with her to the hospital, and, I was locked out of all those things. She had 3 surgeries. Everything's good. She's, we got a clean bill of health. We're on the survivorship program. She's recovering. We finished everything in December, but like we were on ultra lockdown because at the beginning, nobody knew, like oncologists didn't know what that meant for cancer patients. So they're like, you cannot get this. And, we don't know what it'll do. And, my wife got vaccinated before I did, thankfully. And then I got vaccinated, and it was like this moment of like, I told my wife, I'm like, shortly after that, the Golden Knights had their first game. They allowed people in, and I got us tickets. And I'm like, you want to go? She's like, let's go. And as we were driving, she was overwhelmed with a mixture of emotions, fear. Wait, are we doing the right thing? Can we go do this? Can we go to this arena? There's how many people? 2,700? Is that too many? Are we going to be distanced? What's going on? And I was just like, babe, we did it. We made it. We made it through the whole thing without you getting sick. You got done with all the treatment. Everything's good. We made it. Like, let's just go do it. And if we freak out and we don't feel comfortable, we'll leave. And it was like, it was the beginning of the opening of the dam, and literally next week we're going to Disney World. We're going to like ground zero. COVID, man. So I know exactly what you're talking about. It was like, whoa, what a year, but like I literally, we made it. We did it,
Awesome. I kind of feel like that's a perfect thing to end on. You didn't want to talk about real water, did you, just?
If we want to, we can talk about that.
Well, first of all, do you want to tell people why it's funny?
Okay, so anybody who's been here locally, there's this company, Dan, that's in Las Vegas that makes real water. That's the title of their water. It's bottled water that says it's negative ionized pH balanced water. And it's
sounds delicious.
It's Las Vegas Valley water, says the source is, right? It's tap water that's run through whatever system of whatever to then bottle it, whatever filters to bottle it.
Real water.
Real water. And so the FDA came out with a report today that says, do not drink real water. It has caused liver failure in a number of different people. It's proven, we can figure it out. What happened is when they tried to cleanse the water in this way, they put too much of this cleanse in it, and it's caused liver failure. Do not drink real water. Take it off the shelves. And why it's funny,
including one, Justin, to point it out, Stephen Bonner, who is in the UFC Hall of Fame. He's not a Hall of Famer, as it was said, but he is in the UFC Hall of Fame as one of the most famous fights in UFC history. Was a UFC, pioneer, basically. Was in the hospital for 5 days and almost died from this.
Yeah,
it's nuts. And in addition,
one of them had a liver transplant. Yep. So the reason why it's funny for Adam
is hilarious, guys.
The owner of Real Water is a guy named Brent Jones, and Brent Jones used to be the assemblyman for my district until I ran against him and beat him. That's why it's funny.
Yes, and
you're welcome, Nevada.
Yeah. So that guy was in the legislature, and Justin thankfully defeated him. So I got to cast a vote. I guess I shouldn't say who I voted against, but I did vote for you, Justin. I got to cast a vote against the Real Water guy.
Well, wait a minute. Okay, if it weren't for Justin, he would just be screwing up our laws. Now he's out there, potentially murdering people with his Real Water.
No, he had water.
No. Yeah, we're a citizen. Yeah, we're a citizen legislature. He was running on his Real Water money. That's how he.
Okay. All right.
That was his platform.
The liver damaging water.
Okay.
Funded his campaign allegedly. The FDA said it, right? So I can say it damages the liver.
The FDA has confirmed, right? As far as I'm concerned,
it's perfect. No, to answer the question, as Dan asked, also no, the water business was here before the legislature time, so we're good. We are solid. That'll do it, unless you guys have any water in Denver that's killing people, Dan, that we can talk about.
Pure as a driven snow.
Perfect. And like what I don't know what we do. Do we give like Twitter handles or tell people to follow us, or what do we do here? I don't know what
they all know where we're at, and we retweeted. You retweeted the broadcast, right?
I did. So follow along. You'll see a lot of Dan's smoking habits, and also see maybe pictures of his sliced finger at some point up on Twitter.
I did not put that on there. I thought that would be poor form. I pretty much now all I do is put up food pics on social media at Dan T. Jacobs Law. I did see in the comments, Adam really pissed somebody off by not reading comments. They're like,
oh yeah, it was.
I'm out of here.
Yeah. So somebody put like 7 straight comments in it. I was actually going to get to it and answer it, but you guys were in a good rhythm. I was like, I'll just let it go. And then
Did somebody say, is that my new nickname? Kirky Doo? Is that my new nickname? Real Slice? It's from the meat slicer.
Perfect. Let's see. Make sure there's nothing else on here. Oh yeah, Justin, no restaurant announcement yet, correct?
I was going to ask. I was going to bring it up,
When I'm able to announce, I will announce.
Why are you being so cagey, Watkins?
Because I haven't signed
people demand to know. Inquiring minds want to know. Where's the restaurant?
Well, the thing about it is, once I sign the documents, it's going to take months to find a location, to get it built out the right way. I mean, I'm not going to be open tomorrow. I'm bringing a new franchise to Las Vegas that's not in Las Vegas. It's going to take some work. I just haven't signed the documents. I can't officially say I'm a franchisee yet.
Is it authentic Japanese Wagyu?
No.
Buffet?
No, that'd be great. I know, Brady. I said I was signing in January. Well,
why'd you lie to
lawyer? I'm crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's, and I started a lobbying business and a government affairs business in the middle of it. I built out a fucking podcast room. Give me a break, guys. I got a lot going on.
That's true.
The franchise is now, the podcast room's done, thankfully. So we got that done. That's great. But I'm working on it. I'm working on it, Brady.
And by the way, to Brady's other question here, yes, I understand that. Usually what Steve does, and I don't even know if you guys notice this when he does it, he'll in the middle of a sentence just cut the broadcast off and end it. And then everybody's like, whoa, what happened there? What happened? That's what he does. We can't do that today because Steve is still in charge of the room. So all we're going to do is leave the room, and then the broadcast is still going to be going until Steve cuts it off. And it's his birthday, so I doubt it's gonna happen.
It's gonna go all night.
It's gonna go all night. So you guys,
my poor mother-in-law is gonna watch the whole fucking thing. She'll be like, "Are they coming back on?"
Yeah, and as Brady said here, make sure that you understand to not.
Justin, where's Justin? Is he falling down? Is he head?
Yes,
you sound just like her. It's perfect.
And also, yes, make sure you turn your cameras off because the broadcast will continue running. So as Brady said, don't pull a Tubin. Let's all keep that in mind and make sure your camera is closed as we go. But you guys, great job. Dan, Justin, awesome. Glad you let me be an idiot here with you and throw my nonsense out there. Everybody else, thank you guys. Steve and I think Dave Koken tomorrow night. So make sure you tune in then. See you guys.
Night.